Okay, we're gonna wait a second.
Concert? Okay, that's the middle school. Don't go up too fast. Remember what I said. Stop taking it out. It's up here. It's up here. It's up here.
We're gonna have a little bit of a change. Oh, next. Thank you. We're going to have a little bit of a change in our agenda and let the presentations go first before I call the meeting to order because we have a board member that's just a little late. So we will start with presentations so we don't have to keep you long. Cub Scout Pack 6069, Ms. Brown and the Cub Scouts.
I would like to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Brown. I'm the charter rep and a den leader for PAC 6069 out of Jackson School. Our Cub Master, Don Anderson, committee chair, Bill Brown, den leader, Miss Ball. We have a den chief, Julie Swakis, parent, Stephanie Aaron, Ross and Ember Aaron, and also Raven and Shannon Casey with us this evening. I'd like to start with a brief history of scouting in Batavia and the Batavia City School District. The first Boy Scout troop started in Batavia in 1910 with the first Cub Scout pack starting in 1914. Early newspaper reports would tell about scouts mustering and camping and hiking. In 1915, it even said that a boy aged 13 pulled a kid out of the Tonawanda Creek, and you can be sure that probably was front page news back then. 1922, we saw our very first Eagle Scout here in our city, and that was Sam Wood. He obtained Eagle, which is our highest rank that we have in our organization. Through the years, Scouts in Batavia have been known for city cleanups and planting tens of thousands of trees in our time, and they even helped with a speed test. In 1928, the mayor had asked 77 Boy Scouts to come and do a speed activity day there on Main Street. They helped little old ladies across the street, which we're known for, and they also pointed out 200 traffic violators to the mayor that day. In 1925, Jackson School was being built, but in 1929 was the first year that they had students. In 1939, the very first Cub Scout pack was at Jackson School, and there was also one at East School at the time. That year, Jackson was also enlarged to become a middle school. The Cub pack remained. By 1947, there were 1,000 scouts in the county, 600 of them in Batavia. In 1961, Jackson School went back to being a community school, and they serviced the children on the south side of town. In 1967, there were 5,000 scouts in our area. In 1982, they allowed Cub Scouts to be Tigers. That's age 7, like her with her little orange neckerchief. She is a 7, and that's Shannon. In 1991, Scouts in this council had a canned food drive that collected 58,000 cans of food for the holiday season for families in need. In 2014, Jackson School was renamed Jackson Primary. In 2019, Batavia City School District agreed to let girls join the scouting movement in the packs that they host. Here we are in 2022. We have about 2,000 scouts in our council, and we encompass 5 counties for our council, and we have 2,000 scouts. Still today, we're striving to follow the same aims in scouting that we did 110 years ago. We're working with children to create engaging citizens with strong moral character and leadership skills. You can still read about us in the newspaper with our fund drives and our can drives and our fundraisers and the Pinewood Derby. This month, we are celebrating 50 consecutive years at Jackson Primary. Without Batavia City School District being our chartered partner and Mrs. Notaro and Jackson Primary being our home, we would not have been able to accomplish this. So we would like to thank you for your outstanding continuous support, and we would like to present these certificates to you with our most sincere appreciation. So we have one certificate from Ms. Notaro, if you please come up. Thank you so much for being our home. And then we also have another one for Batavia City School District, who hosted the very first Cub Packs. We thank you. Thank you. Because truly, without you, there would be no us. And we just absolutely love this program. I personally have been involved, my husband as well, for 15 years with our Cub Pack at Jackson. And I'm proud to say that my son started as a Tiger Scout and ended up as an Eagle Scout. And I'm super proud of that. So we are very fortunate that Raven was one of our very first girls in our pack. And I have high, high hopes for her that she and Ember both will become Eagle Scouts one day. Okay? Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. See you later. Hope we have volume. We'll see.
We will now continue with the Batavia High School update. Mr. Paul Kessler.
All right, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving us the time to give you an update on Batavia High School. I have Mr. Hussein with me as well, and at the end of our presentation, he's going to highlight one of the new programs that we have this year. So you can see just some pictures of student activities. It's exciting to have them up here because they're things that we would have had to run in more of a restrictive way in the last couple years, so getting students back into more of a natural environment has really been exciting for us. All right, well, I'm going to try something different here. Okay, so some student highlights that we have right now. We're, as you heard from at the last board meeting, we're going to have 2 senior trips. So we're going to do Allegheny State Park and also a trip to Stella Maris. And so we're really appreciative of your support for that, and that's going to make it more inclusive for a lot of students to be able to attend that. We were able to make a difference day, one of my favorite days earlier in the fall, and just we go to so many places in the community, and all the feedback is what great workers our kids are those days, and they love it because they're outside in the community and they've gotten to select their places to go. Mamma Mia is the big talk right now, so Mamma Mia will be premiering tomorrow night, so there's a session tomorrow night, on Saturday night as well, and then a matinee on Sunday. And so Mr. Smith and I got treated yesterday to a little bit of a sneak preview on one of the songs, so that was really, really exciting. And so we're really looking forward to that. Mr. Hussein's going to touch a little bit later on some of our early internship type of opportunities that we have. And then we're working with the GCEDC on what's called the Cornell Program, and that's being offered for the first time this year for our seniors who are graduating that might be choosing to go to a career path. And so for 3 days, the week after graduation, they can go to this Cornell boot camp, and it's going to be training them for manufacturing jobs that are right here in the area, that are well-paying jobs to start. And so upon completion, they get a certificate there, but they're partnering with local dairy companies around here. So we're really excited about that. John Jakubowski and Chris Swazi are our 2 partners with that, working through the GCEDC. We're really exciting that it's going to give some of our students a pathway from graduation right to a job that can become their career. So we're really excited about that. All right, and we mentioned a little bit earlier our sports, music, arts, and clubs. So we're on a little bit of a hiatus right now. Our spring practices are beginning this week, so it's nice to see some good weather, and the baseball bats and tennis rackets have been coming in this week. All right, I'm gonna do it this way. Some student achievement highlights. One of the things that was a challenge the last couple years is engagement of some of our remote students. So having students back in person full time we've started to see more engagement of students over the last 2 years. We were really pleased that our last year's seniors, we had a 96% graduation rate. We're really, really excited about that. That goes as a testimony to the work K through 12 in terms of engaging students, finding the right pathways. Students that disengage for a while, working on credit recovery programs with them, and so we're really pleased with that. And then continuing to have early college opportunities. So as you know, we have a lot of partnerships with GCC in terms of college classes, but starting last year and going into this year, we're partnering with Damon for some college classes. And so after school, we offered a cartooning class through Damon that several of our students took that opportunity for. They offered it for free. The students got college credit. All we had to do was pay for the materials for the students to go. And so we're looking forward to continuing that next year. If we have enough student interest, they also have kind of a pre-law pathway that they'll partner with us as well on that. So we're excited about that partnership as well. In terms of what we're working on with our staff, you've probably heard a lot about social emotional learning. And so I would say one of the, key effects of students being in school, out of school, is really a lot of things that they have to work through in terms of socialization, right? A lot of things were at times just, through a computer screen, and students weren't together and such. And so it's caused us to recognize, not only as a district, but really as a nation, that some of the focus needs to be on, helping students to be able to interact, helping them to recognize that all of our own mental health is really important, and recognizing that. And so we're doing a lot of work with our staff around that. We've revised some of our data review protocols to not only make sure that we have a good grasp on where each of our students are achieving, but our instructional approaches to make sure that it's meeting the needs of a diverse population. And then, continually working with our teachers on making sure that we're engaging our students. And like I mentioned earlier, we always have some students that maybe didn't take a real straight line pathway. And so, that doesn't mean that we give up on that student. That means that we come up with a plan for them and say, all right, how are we going to double up on this class? What kind of supports can we give you after school? How can we create a schedule that's going to be a good pathway for you? All right, what's new and exciting? We're looking forward to on May 2nd. That will be our what we call Decision Day, where students will kind of announce what college and or career they're going into. And then we're going to go walk the halls at Jackson and John Kennedy and Batavia Middle School to allow those students to cheer our seniors on as we go. It's something we really look forward to. Next year, our graduating class will be the first to be part of that Latin honor system that we were talking about, where there'll be summa cum laude, and magna cum laude. And so we're working that. And that, again, is going to allow us to honor even more students at graduation for that. We updated our open house, and you can see that in the picture this year. We moved it outside and had it by department. It was a little cool that evening. We did have increased attendance over what we'd had in previous years, and most of the feedback from parents was that it was very nice to kind of be in closer environments so that they could kind of walk from tent to tent with that. And so we're looking to build off of that next year. And I did want to give a shout out to the middle school too, that they had kind of tried the same thing, and Mr. Corzelius gave me feedback, and so we implemented a lot of those things here as well. We're excited to have Operation Graduation back in person, and that's where our students are presenting on a college and career opportunity of interest to them, and we have judges from throughout the community coming in to learn about that. All right. In terms of next steps, as I touched upon earlier, continued focus on our social-emotional aspect of the student's education. Our analysis of incoming student data to continually improve our performance amongst all of our student groups, and looking at updating our building procedures and policies to ensure we have a positive environment for all students with a focus on empathy, responsibility, and responsiveness to our students. And so, as you know, we're piloting a few things that the students have recommended, and we'll look forward to in about a month we'll hear back and report back from our students on how our hat and hood pilot is going. Just to give you a quick update, it's going really well, especially with the hats. And the hoods have gone really well too. One thing that I've given students reminders on is making sure that their earbuds are out, even though their hoods are up. And so we put the responsibility though on students, knowing that we're going to report back to all of you in terms of any challenges that we've seen with that change. And so we have a student group that's working, Mr. Hussein's chairing that group, giving him feedback, and so we'll provide that feedback for you as well.
All right, I think I'm up.
Yep, you're up.
So I'm Omar Hussein. I'm one of the 2 assistant principals over at the high school. We've got this exciting program that we launched this fall called our Leave to Learn. And the idea and the goals are around getting our 10th graders out into the greater Batavia community and exposing them through a 2-day field trip to some of the different career opportunities and industries that exist. Some of them are manufacturing, some of them are first responders, and then some of them are going to be more like specific to counseling, maybe even mental health needs. And you'll notice from some of the student testimonials that we also included some educational opportunities for them. And the goal was successful in the fall. We're going to be doing another round. I'll show you a quick preview of the schedule. I know it's kind of hard to see. It's ambitious for sure, but the idea is that students are going to be able to select one of these 6 buses on our date. And based on those 6 buses and the places that we're going to, knowing that this is a draft, they're going to have an opportunity. We included GCC this time too, so they can actually get a college tour and some food put in there. But they're going to have an opportunity to be with an adult and get like a tour and an awesome work session with several of these places. Students were really excited with like Bonduelle when we went there last time, with Chapin, and then when we went to T-shirts, etc., some of the entrepreneurial things that were shared with them. I've got 2 student testimonials, so forgive me if the volume isn't working right away, but I'll make sure that I get it correct. So they're both 10th graders, Peyton and Prue. They're both in the musical. So right now, like, this is Tech Week. This is their final rehearsal. They're both excited for it. I'm going to start with Peyton. And again, if I need to just turn up the volume, I will.
I was in the Levy's Intro Career and Finance class. As a part of this class, we got to do a Leave to Learn tour in different places in Batavia. I personally went to T-shirts, etc., Chapin, and Mercy Flame. I loved the trip because it gave me opportunities to see real-world experiences in fields like medical, engineering, and entrepreneurship. I'm so happy I got to go on the trip. And I'm also excited,
I'm at
as you
turn.
can see from Mia with the set behind me. Our opening night is this weekend. Totally see the show.
So you're gonna notice they both plug it shamelessly. And here's Prudence.
Hello, my name is Prudence Cavallaro, and I'm a sophomore who recently went on a trip for the Intro to Career and Finance class. There was an opportunity to go to different businesses around Batavia, and I ended up going to Jackson Primary School and was able to see from the inside different points of views of teachers who taught at the school. I ended up going to a first grade classroom who was learning spelling and reading, and then I went to the music classroom who was learning like music and like just having fun with music and enjoying themselves. And I would also like to ask if you would enjoy to go to Mamma Mia if you have any free time during the day.
Forgive their shameless plugs. But they were definitely like excited about the trip, and we're looking forward to hosting the second half of our sophomores in just a couple months here. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're hoping Prudence is hopefully a future teacher in training. So that's sort of the advantage of having some kids visit some educational sites. So, all right. Well, thank you for taking the time to hear our update. Are there any questions that anybody has?
Has there already been a sign up for the Cornell program, or is that forthcoming? Do you know how many students are interested in that?
Yeah, so Mr. Hussein and myself and our counselors have been working on names of students that have indicated that they want to go right into a career, and so the counselors are actually individually like saying to students, and in some cases calling their parents and saying, hey, this would be a great program for you. So there hasn't been like a general all-call sign-up, because if a student's already indicated, hey, I'm planning on going to Niagara next year, you know, that's not the target audience at the Cornell Program, but we've already started to recruit students for that program.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, thank you very much for the update.
All right,
We appreciate
thank
it.
you. We always
Thank you.
appreciate your support, so thank you.
We will start the meeting after the last presentation. The next presentation is Special Ed Plan and UPK Special Ed Rooms. Mrs. Kelly Marciano.
All right, so I'm going to give you some updates first on the special education plan, and then move into talking about some things that we're working on with our pre-K program. All right, so the updated special education plan, you should have it, just looks like this little handout here, and I just went through and kind of updated some different things and wanted to highlight what we've noticed through Batavia transitioning here from a smaller district to here. It's been nice to really see what programs we have to offer our students. So one thing that we do offer when we're thinking about our least restrictive is trying to keep our students in the general education classroom and it's great that we have 1 to 2 blends at each grade level. A couple of grade levels have 3 blended classrooms just based on enrollment sizes and needs. Our students have access to occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, counseling, music therapy, vision therapy as well, and autism services, and that is really based on each of their individual needs. We also do a great job, I feel, at the younger levels of really making sure our students who might not be classified at this point get those at the building level too, so we can start to fill their needs earlier. Resource room is the next level that we look at for our students, and again, we're averaging about 1 to 2 sections per grade level for a resource room. As we kind of move up, we start to transition into a slightly larger group of students where they have enrichment, so it's a little bit less supported, a little less reteaching, pre-teaching, and more getting the students to take that ownership of being learners themselves. And then our most restrictive we have in district is our 611 and our 1211s. We have currently 2 611s. Those are housed at John Kennedy. We have our 1211s. We have 2 at Jackson, 2 at John Kennedy, 2 at the middle school that are almost full days. Our 5th grade is primarily full day. Our 6th grade is mostly full day, but they do go out to gen ed for 1 subject. And then once they get 7th and 8th grade, we're really trying to transition them to gen ed classes as much as possible so we can get them ready for Regents-based classes. The state has us update data every year, and we look at different areas, and one thing that we really look at is the amount of time our students are spending inside the general education classrooms. The things that are highlighted in green are the areas that, according to the state, we're doing really great in. We're meeting the baseline for underneath the state requirement. The ones that are not in green, there's no target, so we're still good on those, which is great. But I think we're doing a really great job of thinking about our students and keeping them in the least restrictive. These are our current classification numbers. We have about 266 total classified students. Our highest level of classification is our other health impairment students. That can range from students who have ADHD, ADD, or other different diagnoses such as oppositional defiant disorder. Really that category covers a lot, so we're looking a little bit closer at that category specifically this year and making sure that we have correct classifications for students. We also have some students who are multiple disabilities, so they might fall under that multiple disability classification, but they also fit into other categories as well. So we just want to highlight those. So that's the update on the district plan. So I'm going to go into the preschool changes and needs. So one thing that we've been working on this year is really looking at our youngest learners, how they're coming into school and how their needs have drastically changed. Looking at COVID and how it has impacted our preschoolers coming in, we've started to really notice that their language delays are lower, their socialization is a concern, and so we're seeing quite a significant change. So at the beginning of this year, we had 25 students when we came into the year in our 3 and 4-year-old programs, knowing that they needed services coming from 3 years of age. And now at this point in the year, we're up to 73 students, which is great. We're servicing them younger, but that need means that we need more people to service them. So where we're starting to struggle is finding programs for some of our students. So we're keeping a lot of our students in district. We're working through behavior concerns, speech and language concerns with some of our students, really kind of helping the family with the whole child support, getting outside agencies involved with students, talking to pediatricians, and making sure that they're getting what they need, but we still have a wait list for students and a pretty significant amount of students who are looking for services. So we have 3 3-year-olds who are looking for a program, but we have 15 4-year-olds, knowing that they're going to be our kindergartners next year who really needed services and they're not able to get them at this point. So our current programming that we have, looking at what we currently have and then kind of where we want to go from here, we have 8 students who are currently in programs. And those programs, the downside of that is that they could be 40 to 30 to 50 minutes away from us. So they're on a bus that long in the morning and afternoon, and as we know, young kids on a bus is difficult. They're struggling with their behaviors on the bus, they're struggling with getting up in the morning, so that's a significant challenge for some of our families. We also have 15 students who are currently on that wait list. So again, that means they're getting no services and coming into kindergarten, we know we're gonna have to address those needs right away. So things that have changed and kind of where we're at, the numbers have almost doubled since 2017 of the number of preschool students we're seeing who have needs. We're seeing more needs of students at the preschool level, and as we start to dig through some of the research and we start to do our own research, we're realizing that that is because they haven't had exposure like our students have in the past. They haven't been exposed to other peers, they haven't been exposed to language, so that socialization piece they're really starting to struggle with as well. Many agencies in Genesee County have actually closed. We used to have Rainbow at Robert Morris. They're no longer even operating because of COVID. They weren't able to keep up with the demands. It's becoming difficult to find programs and related services in our region. It's also becoming a concern across the state. We've been talking a lot about that throughout our regional meetings of how it's not just a Genesee County concern, it's really kind of going across the state at this point. We're also seeing an increase in the mental health concerns for our preschoolers and that social emotional needs for them. So last year and over the last 3 years, we've ended up with about 90 students who've needed services, and knowing that the amount of providers that are out there are decreasing and our numbers are increasing, how do we support them? So currently right now we do have 2 special education service teachers who are contracted through the county for preschool. We have one who's starting with us just in a little bit, so she'll be our second one, which is great. They're both employees here, so we get to work with them and kind of help our students get first dibs, which is nice, but they're also servicing our county, which is great too, because we've been able to support some of those families who move into our county and we already know them. A lot of our others are outside agency providers. We do have a speech pathologist who also works with some of our students. So that's what we currently have. And what we would like to do is add some additional programs for pre-K. So we've started doing the application process and have the first part of approval that says that we have a regional need. So we had to go out and talk to other schools and ask what needs they have, develop a whole plan showing them that there's the need, and we got approval for that based on almost our numbers alone just in Batavia. And what we saw from that is that we really need to open some special class sections for our students at that younger level. So we're doing an application where we're going to ask for 2 special class in an integrated setting. So that'll be half special education students and half general education students, so similar to our blends that we have moving through. We'll have an 811 and a 611. So the max that we would look at that one is 16 students, the other one would be 12. And then the 2 special classes, we would want one that's focused on behaviors, one that's on low academics, and then looking at 1211s as well for our students based on academics, and looking at can they manage a full day versus a half day. So we've been working through that process. We've been reaching out to Trisha's office and Scott's office and really getting all the documentation we need. And everyone's been great at helping us with that, and we're very close to submitting it for final approval. All right, so that's kind of where we're at for preschool. Do you guys have any questions?
Kelly, can you just highlight the bottom bullet?
Oh, yes,
Classes that are
yes.
on Morris?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we wanted to do is look at using Robert Morris to house these programs as well, because there's the space there for them, and it would really help us by with the community aspect of having community schools right there, that it becomes kind of that early intervention. We're able to get them right in registration, show them a classroom, get them all in, and we're starting that community piece with the kids right from the beginning.
So we're looking at true classes possibly there for next year, these would be these special ed classes, right?
Correct, yes.
And Kelly, can I just ask
Yeah.
you to add about the funding
Sure.
source, so
Yes.
there's an understanding of
Yes.
how it's funded?
So with preschool, we can fund through the county. We get money back from the county for having these programs. So by doing this application through the state and getting approval, they're ultimately saying that we would get approved for additional funding through the grants, through then the county. The county would do a contract with us, and then they would get approval as well. So it's not necessarily coming from the district, it's county funded, just like typical pre-K programs are.
And then going back to one of your previous slides, you
Yeah.
talked about we have 8 students who have to drive 40 to 60 minutes. So to what extent, if at all, would this, with these 2 classes assist with that problem or that
Yeah.
concern?
So our students wouldn't have to travel that far anymore. They would be able to come straight to Robert Morris for our programs. So some of them would drive 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes instead of 30 to 60. So we'd be able to have them here and really target those behaviors of some of our high-risk kids.
How long is this program will be a grant from the county?
So we have to do county every year. We have to reapply. So right now the county approval that we have is for 2 years. So we'll do the same process. So we'll meet with them after we get approval from the state, and then we would say, how long can we do a contract with? Typically it'd be 2 years.
And that funding is fully funded through the,
Would it
through
be-
the county?
I mean, it's mostly, but we'd have to look at exactly what we need. So we've put into the application partially like my position, partially the secretary who works on preschool, OT, PT, everything possible that we would need to even fund something like this. Other questions? Yeah, so we'll keep you updated as that process goes along and as we hopefully get approval from the state, and then hopefully we'll be able to take some next steps from there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yes. Because we needed a quorum, we had the presentations come in and present, and now I will call the meeting to order, and we'll have our pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is public to be heard, which we have none. So I will move on to good news, and we have so much good news that what we decided is that all of this good news will be put on the website. We got good news from everywhere, so I think it's in your packet. I won't be reading them individually because then we'll be here until 8:30. So I'll just tell you that it's on the website and that it came from practically every school. So I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I hope everyone continues to send us good news. All right, then the next item on the agenda is reports.
Alice, this is where we want to table.
Oh, we are tabling this?
We're going to table not only the report and the first two
Oh,
items.
okay. Then I need a motion to table. Do I need a motion to table this or just out on consent?
You need a motion to table the two new business items
Mhm.
because we are not going to be hearing from Energy today.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Regal. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan? Yes. Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. Okay, then we'll definitely go on to the preliminary budget and financial summary report. Mr. Rosansky.
All right, we'll start with the financial summary report. Looking at January 2022 versus January of 2021. Revenues are up 3% or $864,000. Same line items keep being highlighted as in the past, so I'll kind of review those kind of quickly. The real property tax items, that's our pilots, our payments and lower taxes. That's an increase of $128,000 or 17%. As reported in the past, we're probably going to be under budget here because the tax rate at budget time last year was projected before the reassessment value. So we're going to be about 100,000. The projection is about 100,000 less than what the budget is. The non-property tax items, that's our utility tax. It dates back to the 1960s when the public voted to have a utility tax in lieu of a sales tax. This is trending higher by just under $30,000 compared to a year ago, or 8.74% higher. We, last year, we exceeded our budget of $675, so we should be on track to exceed the budget here for this line item. The sale of property, next item, $89,000 increase. We sold a couple vehicles this year back in the fall, and we're replacing one vehicle. Miscellaneous is up $58,000 or 9.56%. And this basically is the last 2 years, or 3 years ago, we did E-rate projects, 3 and 2 years ago. And we got funding for it last year and then this year. So they were special projects. We normally get E-rate, but there's a usually like a 5-year period where you can do special projects. And we did those projects over 2 years. Last month, this was falling behind a year ago, but we did get a $140,000 increase in January for the second project, so that's reflected in this month. And then federal and state aid, it's up $571,000 or just under 8%. That's really a result of some timing. We are getting more state aid, but a year ago, until the stimulus funds were passed in late December, state aid was kind of lagging behind. So this will eventually catch up percentage-wise. On the expenses, overall, a $496,000 decrease or 2.21%. As reported previously, about $600,000 of that was an accounting entry done earlier than normal. We did that, I think, in September or October this year, and in the past, it was at the end of the year, and basically it's reversing our accrued payroll at the end of the previous year. It's just an accounting entry. We're trying to get it to be more current for each year, so we don't have that adjustment at year end. We can take care of it in July or August each year. So even though it's a $496,000 decrease, if you add back technically the $600,000, we are a little bit above where we were a year ago. In the area of central services, that's a decrease of $258,000 or just over 14%. And this is one of timing from a year ago. We did a lot of purchasing for COVID, and that hit the books in July and August of 20. When we closed out our books in June of 20, a lot of any surplus we were spending that with year-end funds, and then when the items came in July and August, that's when all the payments were occurring. So it was kind of skewed last year for all those extra expenditures, in addition to the payroll situation. Instructional media is only up $117,000, and this is really in the area of BOCES. When I say only, we only made 5 payments this year versus 6 payments last year through January. We had some turnover in the business office and didn't get the payment by the end of January, but we are running weekly check runs, so you'll see that one hit in February, and probably 2 in February to get us caught up. But generally, last month I think that was about a $600,000 difference, and we were buying our technology earlier this year because of supply chain issues. We wanted to purchase it earlier versus waiting till year end. We're still waiting for some items, but we wanted to get in the queue a lot earlier. Transportation is up $218,000. Last month it was only up $122,000, so increased a lot in the month of January. But last December of 20, we were remote from December 5th through the end of December. So we only had 4 days, and we usually pay December's bill in January, a month behind. So we only had 4 days a year ago that we paid for transportation with STA and Attica-Bus, and this year we had 16 days, so a lot more days because we weren't remote during the month of December to December. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Okay. Now to the preliminary budget. The budget workshop was held Tuesday night with the board and was streamed and is on our website or Facebook. And budget to budget, we're just about a $3 million increase over last year for the preliminary budget, or 5.74%. It's $55,087,660. Our tax levy at the preliminary budget is $20,566,123, or an increase of $1,072,000, or 5.5%. Our revenues are an increase of $2,032,000, up to $31,307,131, or just under 7% increase. Most of that state aid. Fund balance appropriated, that's surplus that's in the budget current year, and it's a little bit higher this year. It's similar to last year, but this year's reason why it's higher is because of the stimulus funds that are built into the general fund budget. They will go away next year, but that's allowing us to be at the $2,250,000. It's important to know that next year the stimulus funds aren't built into the budget, and we will have to address that. There's supposed to be the foundation aid to help offset that, to make us current, but it won't be the full $2.2 million. And then the fund balance appropriated reserves, and that's really two line items. We have an employees retirement system expense, but we also have a reserve, so they wash out. They're both $914,000. So whatever we spend in ERS expense as employer contribution, we'll take from the reserve. And then we also have unemployment insurance, and if we have $50,000 budgeted in expense, and also $50,000 budgeted in the reserve. So again, it will wash with each other. So overall, to get to the tax cap, our limit is 1.62%. We would have to reduce expenditures $756,449. I do have a summary of some items that Mr. Smith and I have gone through the budget, and identified some areas to get us to the tax cap if the board wishes to proceed with that. The first item, last board meeting, there were 4 retirements, 2 teachers, 2 teacher aides. If we replace the 4 positions, we would save $118,000 between salaries and bennies of those that are leaving versus new hires. Could save more if the positions are not needed, but a worst case scenario, we're replacing, financially worst case scenario, we're replacing everybody, and we'll still save $118,000. We talked about STA buses at our workshop, and the budget includes going back to the preliminary budget includes going back to the pre-COVID bus schedule, where John Kennedy had their own buses, Jackson had their own buses, high school technically shared with Jackson and a tier. They finished 4 buses early at Jackson and then came back to pick up the high school, and middle school had their own buses. With the bus driver shortage this year, we weren't able to have all 20 buses, and even the year before. If we continue that, we can reduce the preliminary budget by $366,000. And what that means is Jackson and John Kennedy students will still ride the buses together as they did this year, and high school and middle school students will ride together as they did this year. It creates a little bit longer day for our Jackson students, because they get on the bus first and then go over to John Kennedy, and usually the first 2-3 weeks of the year, with the kids getting used to the process, it does take a little bit longer. after the first 3 weeks or so, things kind of die down, everyone's into a routine, and those kids now are starting to learn the process. So, but right now, it's, we could take that out if the board wishes to proceed with that reduction. If not, we can put it back in and look for other reductions, but right now it's shown to get us to the tax cap. That's a decision that we could make, and it'd be exactly how we're running things this year. And then with the federal funding, we overall in the next 3 years we get about $5.8 million, and that's for new programs and such, and that's part of why it's almost a $3 million increase in budget to budget. But a lot of that's offset by grants. We were a little bit conservative with the first draft of the budget. There are some positions that, most new positions are funded. There were existing positions that we could claim in the ARPA funds that we didn't put in the budget initially. So we showed 100% expense. Mr. Smith and I talked about it. We talked about phasing that in. That would be a phase-in would be reducing expense by $271,000.
So you're saying that some of those positions that you're thinking, the district is thinking of increasing will come under this grant?
Positions that are currently in place that would be permanent. With the new funding, the object is either the program gets funded by the district and it maintains, or it goes away. So initially there were about a half dozen positions where we funded at 100% with general fund and didn't touch the grant. And after we saw the preliminary budget, we felt we could phase that in and reduce the general fund share over 2 years.
And keep these positions?
Correct. So after 3 years, after 2 years, the third year, they're already built into the budget if we were to maintain them and stuff.
I see.
Okay. So those reductions bring us just under $757,000. So the increase would be $2,334,000 or 4.29% on expense to expense. For revenues, at this point in time, there's no change in revenues. State budget hasn't been released, usually the April 1st deadline. It's a very good state budget that the executive put out. I'm not sure if there will be any adjustments as there has been in the past, but there might be. Again, appropriated fund balance. This is a surplus in this year's budget, and we don't anticipate anything more to appropriate at this point in time for that. It's important to note, the higher that goes and the harder it is next year. Like if we made that $3 million, and then we're going down to $1 million next year, we got to find $2 million. And then reserves, as I mentioned before, that's coming right from the ERS appropriations and unemployment appropriations, so it's really a wash. It really doesn't matter because we can't put more money there. Whatever our expense is our revenues. So where's this bring us on the tax levy? We were at $20,566,000. The expenditures that are being considered tonight are just under $757,000. That would bring our preliminary budget tax levy to $19,809, which is just over $315,000, or 1.617, underneath our 1.62% by $492. So if the board were to accept everything presented tonight, we would already be at our tax cap. If the board would like us not to touch any of those items, like the transportation. Then we'll need some guidance on, where you wanna see the taxes. We're gonna need guidance anyway. If you wanna go down to 0, we need guidance. If you want transportation maintained, where Jackson has their own buses, John Kennedy has their own buses, assuming that there are drivers, then we would have to put that back in and relook at other areas.
Well, I guess one of the issues, let's talk about the busing, is that we had some younger children this school year really on the buses for a very long time and had parental complaint. Not a lot. I guess my question is it 5 buses that we need, Can we do with one more bus, to alleviate those lengths of time for those younger students? Does it have to be 5 buses or nothing?
No, we could go back to the drawing board and figure out what that is. I'd have to see what Jackson and John Kennedy had 2 years ago. I'm thinking, again, it's just from memory, that they probably would have been around 14 or 15, at least 14 buses just for those two, 7 and 7, I think is about where it was.
Because we're talking, we had one student on the bus for 45 minutes going to school and at home, and there was a big issue with that because it was such a young student.
Correct. Yeah, that's
But that was one parent.
right, and right, and it was the first couple weeks of school.
And I realize that, bugs are being.
Right.
And they
So-
had on masks.
Yes, yeah. I guess the only thing that I want to say statement-wise is that busing is not mandated. This is a privilege given to the parents of the district to bus their kids.
Correct, within the city limits.
Within the
yes.
city limits, yes. Yeah.
I mean, if we kept those 5 buses, do we even have the drivers for them at this point?
I was just gonna ask that. Don't know.
As
So
of
that's
this
like- that's
point in
crapshoot
time,
at this point.
right,
Mhm.
right. I mean, we can budget for it, and if they don't have the drivers,
That we're sitting on.
then, right. STA has not been able to get surplus drivers at this point in time. Some businesses are finding hard to find labor when they need labor. And transportation is one of them.
Do you have any other suggestions as to where we could save other than these 3 areas?
These are the easiest. You can delay some purchases. You could look at staffing. We could delay our implementation of being fully funded with the ARPA funds. That was about $300,000, so we could take our full allocation there this year and delay this a year from now type thing. But maybe then we have drivers available, and now we're having a different discussion too. So
And so in this 4 retirements that you're talking, this difference is replacement between the more veteran teachers that are retiring versus hiring new. That's the difference in their pay and benefits.
correct.
Is 118.
Correct.
Okay. Now, but the preliminary budget that you showed us on Tuesday also had in there additional positions, right? There were 9?
There were a total, the number of teachers increased from a year ago by 9 positions, correct. Some of them, a majority of them are funded by this ARPA
Yes.
grant fund.
Right.
But let's say there were 4 that were part of the general fund budget that I didn't take in the first part of the grant. That's where that additional, 271,000.
You're transferring that group, part of that group of the 9 is gonna come under the additional grant allocations.
Right.
And that subtracts it from the general fund.
technically, I could add another two, if we didn't, touch general fund, if we left transportation either full or partial, I do have another 271 in the grants that we could bring back in to swap that, or to go lower than the tax cap. We talked about phasing this in, so,
This is the phase-in number,
right.
and if you took it all, there would be no phase-in next year.
No, we would be 460,000 to either make a decision within a year or two, or you know, like this grant's good for 3 years. So if it never gets built in the general fund budget, then those positions go away three years from now, or you add it in 3 years from now. So we're trying to slowly phase that in.
Anyone
Those-
else have any other concerns? But, and I talked to Jason prior to the meeting, and he is, thinking of getting someone in here to give us an overview of our needs versus our number of students. So if we're talking about leaving the additional grant allocations the way they are and not actually bringing more of that grant money in this year and nothing next year, we would have a better idea for next year, or by having this overview, tell us if we have the right numbers, the right number of teachers to the right number of students.
Right.
Without asking for that advanced grant money to be put in this year. It would be phased in next year.
Right.
And when he looks at those, he's gonna look at all the jobs here,
Yes.
whether they're grant funded or not,
Mm-hmm.
all the different
Sure.
positions for the exam.
Sure. Well, how does everyone feel
Scott,
about
how's
this?
this, with this tax levy, how does that affect the community? And I know Tuesday you mentioned it was the small portion as far as taxes.
Right. I was gonna get see where the assessments were, and I wasn't able to see where that is.
I mean, on average of a $90,000 house.
I'd hate to speculate, John, because I didn't run those numbers, but, you know, if you roughly add 1.62% to your, tax bill, if you're paying $2,000, then maybe, $20.
Okay.
Anyone else have any other comment they'd like to make about the budget?
The buses would have been the only concern that I can see. But like Jen asked, and everybody knows, that's gonna be a crapshoot. We don't know if we're gonna have enough bus drivers or not next year or not. Are we voting on the budget tonight?
No, but,
Okay.
kind of looking for guidance on
We
where you
will-
would like to see.
So you can either consider these suggestions and let Jason and Scott know how you feel about them, or if you think you've come up with some really good suggestion that another place they could look, or do you want the Jason and Scott to look at other areas versus these? Like he said, these are the easiest ones for them to reduce. Maybe there's someplace else that's more difficult and may not certainly reap as much benefit, but if you don't like these choices, then they need to know that. And if you don't like the 1.62% increase for the tax levy, I need to hear that too, because then there's definitely has to be some work done to reduce it to zero, which last year, that was the board's choice last year. We told Scott and Mr. Solar that we wanted no increase. So you can either tell them how you feel now, or let them know how you feel about the 1.62, or if that's what it is. Okay? Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Scott, thanks.
All right.
Okay, next, on the reports is student ex officio report, and Mrs. Whitcup is giving Kylie Tatarka's report.
So Kylie's not with us tonight, she's practicing for Mamma Mia, so this is her report for the evening. The Batavia High School Production Club will present Mamma Mia March 18th, 19th, and 20th. It is a high-end production that has been highly anticipated by all students. March is Music in Our Schools Month. The high school is hosting a Mysterious Tunes competition in order to celebrate both music as a whole and female musicians throughout the world. On March 31st, each school in the district will bring ensembles to perform at the Music in Our Schools concert, ranging from elementary students to high school ensembles. The concert celebrates the district's dedication and commitment to music education. The high school student government will be hosting a spring dance this year on Saturday, April 2nd, to the excitement of many students. This will be hosted in the high school's gymnasium. On March 18th, which is tomorrow, senior high school students will be celebrating 100 days until graduation, where they will get breakfast and will participate in prize raffles. Seniors are encouraged to participate to celebrate their last few months of high school.
The date for that new date for the Music in Our Schools concert?
March 31st.
March 31st. Yep.
Is not good if you do it in our office.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate Kylie's report. Then the next item on the agenda is agenda alterations, if any, and yes, we have two. One, under consent items, oh, I'm sorry, I checked you right off already, Jason, go ahead.
I'll make it fast. I'll better make it fast. I'll make it fast.
Sorry,
I'll
I
make
was
it
looking at my
fast. I'll
list,
make it
oh, I don't
fast.
have to do that. Sorry, I
That's what
apologize.
thanks. I just want to recognize and thank PAC 6069. It's a personal connection for me. My son was a member of that PAC for several years. They do a fantastic job. I'm glad to see them, going on strong. As you know, we are mask optional. We have a few students and staff wearing masks, but by and large, the mask optional has been well received. We do still have plenty of test kits available, so we are handing those out at will to our staff and to our families. If anybody would like any, please give us a call. We have plenty of test kits that we can hand out. As you've heard, Mamma Mia is alive and well. The show premieres on stage here Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Mr. Kester and I saw a fantastic preview here yesterday that rang through the halls of district office that we all heard. They sang one of the numbers from ABBA, from the show Mamma Mia. Strategic planning is well underway. That process has resumed. Dr. Corey's leading that process. We met on Tuesday with the team. Anything you want to add to that, Molly, in terms of the process?
It's exciting to be back to work with it, and there's many people coming together to give guidance and feedback on, so that it's a solid plan to move forward with starting this summer.
Yeah, so we'll have 3 more sessions. The board will have an opportunity to look at the plan in June, and then from there we will develop building goals and board goals. Thank you for your participation in the retreat this past Saturday. It was a well-done retreat, and thank you for all your feedback. We are planning a second one some evening in September where we can work on board goals after we have the district goals set. So thank you for that. Spring sports began on Monday. We had some nice warm weather, so we saw students outside running this afternoon. It was great to see. We also have several students that were recognized this past winter for all league events and all the recognitions. I want to recognize those students as well. And my entry plan process is nearly done. I had my last meeting yesterday. I'll have a report for the board in the late spring on the results of those meetings. I probably have close to 50 or 60 meetings from January 1st on to now. We are in the process of looking at our school logos, not our mascot, okay, not our school colors, but we noticed some inconsistencies between the various B's around the school, okay? Not the insect, but the letter B. So I'm going to have our PR director here in April, and she will show you what she has in mind. This will not cost us anything, Scott. Okay, it's free of charge. It's going to be all digital, and we want to have some, you know, some consistent logos across the board. Obviously, the colors and mascots will stay, you know, will stay the same, but we're trying to get that more uniform across the board. At last count, we counted 15 or so different Bs across the district, so we're trying to get that on one page. I want to recognize finally our own Mrs. Nataro, who was here earlier. She was being recognized at the end of April for a Woman of Distinction as part of the YWCA. So I'd like to thank her and recognize her. She was nominated by Mr. Sutton, and I will be attending that event, as will Mr. Sutton. I've also invited, Mr. Regal's been invited, and Mrs. Humes as Jackson School reps to attend as well. So I'd like to recognize her, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for
It's okay.
dismissing you. So now we will go on to agenda alterations, which we have two. One, under consent items, we're adding an appointment, E, and one under new business, which is revised, date revisions, G and H. They're all on this green slip here. I need a motion to accept agenda alterations.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal, second
Second.
by Mrs. Lenve. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call.
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is consent items. Just making sure. I need a motion for consent items, please.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. We'll move on to old business, 2021-22 and 2022-23 Board of Ed meeting schedules, updated meeting location. I need a motion. It's in, yeah? Do you have,
We're just gonna meet here.
Okay, it's just
Instead of
changing the
library.
location.
If we had to, we certainly would, but for now, we'd like to be here if we can.
but we do need board action
Yes.
to accept this?
Accept this?
Yes, yes.
Can we not meet on the 7th of July? Can we make it the following?
Actually, we cannot, there is a state law that we have to meet within the first week of July for a legal.
Right.
Not everyone has to be there,
Right.
but that is the law.
Can I zoom in because I'll be on vacation?
We can have you zoom in. Yeah, there's some steps we have to follow, but
If I'm
yes.
here, I have to be like the first time.
Yes, we can have you do that. There's some steps we have to go through, but yes, that can happen.
Okay.
Okay, I need a motion to accept this updated for meeting locations for the board meetings.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lenve. Any other discussion needed? Seeing none?
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. Next is new business. I need a motion, as I understand, to table,
We
A.
already
We already
tabled
did
those.
We tabled, this is done in the beginning?
Yep, those two
Okay.
are already tabled.
Then I just need a motion to, accept, approve special ed plan as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. Also in your board packet, you've got district policy updates. Now, is this, motion to waive a second reading?
That's correct.
I need a motion for, district policy updates.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Roll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. E is approval of job description, school social worker to replace itinerant school social worker. I need a motion to approve this job description change. Motion made by Mrs. Lenve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Roll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Mrs. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mr. Regal?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. Next is 2022-23 proposed school district calendar. It's in your packet. Has everybody reviewed it? If you have, I need a motion to accept the proposed school district calendar.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Regal?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. We also have annual district election and voter registration, and this is in the new business part, we did have date revisions, so I just need a motion to accept, the annual district election and voter registration. Motion made by Mrs. Lenve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Mrs. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Regal?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. And the last under new business is notice of public hearing, budget vote, and election. I need a motion to accept the notice of the hearing, vote, and election.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Roll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Roll? Mrs. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Regal?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. Now we have other reports and discussion. A policy 3130, recognition of community achievement, discussion on handling dedication of a room, library, building, or athletic field.
So we have a request from Mr. Owen to have the auditorium named after his father, Frank Owen, who was a longtime music teacher here. Frank Owen is a member of the Hall of Fame here for our musicians of note. There's some history there on him as to what has been accomplished. Obviously, we don't have to make a decision now, but I wanted to start the conversation by looking at the policy that we currently have in place as to what you want to do with it. There's not a strong tradition here of naming. Obviously, we have Vendetta Stadium, we have the Anderson softball field. Outside that, I can't think of anything else recently that has been named after folks. But I just wanted to engage the board in a conversation as to how you want to proceed with this request. Mr. Owens, he has not been, he just has been asking for the statuses. So now I've had two or three months, so I wanted to see how I want to handle this request and or any request in the future, with respect to the policy. You can see there in paragraph 3 is that any school or any community member may make this recommendation.
Does anyone have any thoughts about whether they want to do this or whether they don't?
I think I'd like to, I think it was mentioned, is it Haggett?
Haggett, yeah.
Did anybody talk to her?
About this, no, not in particular, no, I have not.
I have. She obviously is in support of it. One of her suggestions, recommendations would be if with the next capital project, if we're looking at doing anything with the auditorium of any part of that, maybe combined it with if there's any, I know we did the stage upgrade, if there's any new upgrades in it, maybe combine that with a renovation of the auditorium, and maybe a better timing would be to, at that time, you know, honor Mr. Owen at that point. But she was definitely supportive of it, and talked a lot about the history of what he's brought to our district, and a lot of the programs that we have now are because of Mr. Owen, so.
Well, I guess, you know, that sounds like a reasonable alternative to wait and see if there will be anything continuing done at the auditorium, and at that time, make the consideration whether we dedicate the auditorium to Mr. Owen. At this time, I know that we have Vendetta Field was renamed from the Woodard family because it was Woodard Field for forever. And I know Mr. Anderson has the softball field named
Right.
after him because he brought girls softball to the district. But, you know, I guess the only hesitation I have is that the recommendations for those two things, the Woodard Field came from the athletic department, and the same with Mr. Anderson's dedication to the softball came from specific people in the athletic department. And not that this community member shouldn't be, you know, capable of recommending. I guess I would have preferred to have heard from the music department to say, look, this gentleman did all of this for us. Can we do this?
Did Ed Anderson Field come from the athletic department? Because I know Dr. Ellie Howe had a huge part in that, and he was her coach in the so I wasn't certain that he came from the recommendation of the athletic department, or the group of people that put it together.
I'm making the assumption that it came from them.
I would want to double check that, because I'm not, so I'm not sure at all.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this for Mr. Owen. I'm just saying that, you know, the other thing is, do we want to name all of our buildings? You know,
I think maybe just give Jason and you another chance to talk with Mrs. Haggett and some other people in the music department to see.
Yeah, the other piece we could do, I could speak with Mr. Owens as well, follow up with him, let him know if there is any momentum that might give it even more credence to have the backing of, say, the music department and our music boosters, just as we did. You know, I recall the Ed Anderson Field. Yeah.
well, I'm sure the public doesn't know that
Yeah.
Mr. Owen has requested this of the district, and maybe just
I
because
could
of
talk to
this
Mr.
meeting or
Haggis some
whatever.
more and have her talk with the music boosters. I can work with the music department. Whether we do the auditorium, or not, I think it would make it nice for to have a grand splash if we have a new auditorium to follow that. If we don't, I think we can come back to the conversation. In the meantime, if it's okay with you, I'll go back to Mr. Owens and let him know, where his request stands. So,
Yeah.
Okay, next, I just need a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lenve. Is there any discussion?
Are we gonna be coming back in the public?
Yes, we'll be coming back into public session afterward, but you can call the
Mr.
vote.
Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckman?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf? Mrs. Bennett?
Yes. And we have a resolution to vote on, and this is authorizing extension of a leave period. I need a motion to accept this resolution.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Regal, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mrs. Lenbe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting's over.
Thank you.
Just a
Well,
brief-
Mr. Scott was gonna say no.